Okay, hi David, Tammy. I hope this works out all right. I'm going to attempt to give you a talk on grafting, fruit tree grafting, and it's part of my hobby of gardening. And as I don't really do much of the seed growing and stuff like that anymore, I restrict it to the fruit trees, for which Marion helps me out with that. So it's quite an interesting hobby, where you can have many types on one tree. But anyway, to get started for a start, I want all of you first to realise that the tree. First of all, you've got a branch, and this is a branch here. I've got some plasticine on the end. I've done that for a reason. I'll explain later. But you have the bark, and if you take the bark off, you've got the cambium layer, which is another really thin bit going round the wood. So it's the cambium layer we're trying to make contact with. If you get a nice contact with that and seal it properly and do a good job on it, then there's no reason why a scion, which is the cutting you're putting onto it, won't work quite well. So I'm hoping you can hear me okay. I'm sorry about this, I'm outside and I can't really get too close to the mic on this, but anyway, let's so that's basically it. You've got the bark, cambium layer and the wood, and you always got to make good contact with the cambium layer. So mainly the tools. Well, the ideal tool for doing the grafting is a grafting knife. The reason a grafting knife is it's only filed on one edge, not both edges, so you get a more razor sharp finish. And normally on the top point of the knife is a blunted bit, a rounded blunted bit. This is used to make your cuts and then lift the bark off of the wood, so that when your tree the sap is running and it's starting to grow, the bark at that already point before that is stuck fast to the cambium layer, which is also stuck fast to the wood. But as the tree starts to grow and the cambium layer starts to deliver food around the tree, the bark comes loose on the cambium layer, and it's possible just to lever it off gently. And what we do with a lot of the grafts is to lever that off and get your graft inside that, whether it be a grafted piece of wood or a bud, which I'll try and show you both ideas if I can. But anyway, that's a knife that I've lost my grafted knife rather, so I'm using a Stanley knife. The reason being, it's got a nice sharp blade. The only problem with that is you've just got to be careful when you're using it, because it is sharp. But I find that better than any of the knives, unless I've got my own grafting knife, which I haven't got a clue where I put it. I have got another one on order, but it hasn't arrived yet. Anyway, so that's the knife, and then what we use to hold these grafts together, there's several types. You can actually cut a polythene bag up, a carrier bag, into like 1/2-inch strips and stretch that round it and then just tie it off at the end. Pull it tight so it pulls it thin and try and tie it off. There is a really good one you can use, which is called buddy tape. The idea of that is you can sort of take a lump off, you can pull it round, you put a slight stretch on it and it will stick to itself nicely. That's quite expensive. I tend to use the Paratape. It's the one they use in hospitals. Same sort of stuff. It also stretches and sticks to itself, but it's a lot cheaper to start. And when both of these should allow, if you tape over a bud, it should allow the bud to actually grow through it, whereas a lot of the others won't, obviously. I've got some tapes in my box here. Well, there's one here. It looks a bit like the tape I use, but it's a lot stiffer, and it pulls nice and tight, stretches nice and tight, but it doesn't stick to itself, so it's a bit of a pain to use. I'm not keen on that. The one I use is this one, which is just the same looking. The difference is it'll stick to itself. You put a slight pressure on it, pull it round it, and it sticks. So that's the one I use, and it works quite well. Once you've sealed all this up, I like to use a sealing compound to actually seal it all in again. Even though the tape should seal it off completely, just to make sure, I use a sealer, which is really like a thick tar-like paste. But you wrap that round, it dries, not dry, but it gives the impression of dried very quickly. And you know, it does. You can put 1 or 2 layers on if you want. I don't bother with that, but that works well. And the other thing to pull it tight is I use elastic bands. I've got some of these, and I've got some what you call normal size ones, quite thin ones. And what I would do is just literally cut it open, and I can probably show you on this bit here. If I put it round it there and stretch it, and there it's got it. So then I can pull it tight round it, as it is there, nice and tight, and I can pull that back and stick it under itself, and it's sealed. And then what I do, I still tape over it, and 9 times out of 10 I'll still seal it with a compound. This will hold it together, but I don't do that all the time. I do it if I think it needs it. So that's the elastic band site. You can when you put a lot of these on, to make sure that, see, when you put a graft on, it has this tendency to dry out, start drying out, especially if it's in the sun, or wind blowing across it, or you've got the end off it. If you cut the end off, I tend to use a little bit of plasticine, just a small bit, and press it onto the end of it and smear it round. That'll stop any evaporation from the end. Well, the idea is you're trying to keep as much moisture in that cutting to allow for the joint to heal and heal before it dries out and dies. So that's a good way of doing it. So what I do, I use this paratape. When I've sealed the join, I carry on going up to the top of it, go right over and over the bud, and then break it off there and leave it. So it's all sealed. You could, even if you really wanted to go to down, to put a layer of these compound all over it as well, which I have done in the past, but I don't think you quite need so much as that. And the other thing is, if you really want to make sure, and it's a hot, windy day, then I've got aluminium foil that I tear a sheet off, or near enough a sheet. I form it around in like a cone, and squeeze it around the bottom of my under my cutting, well under my cutting, and make like a hood for it, but leave a little hole for the air to get in. The idea is you're trying to get the sun and the weather and the wind off it, but allowing it to breathe. So you want to keep all the moisture, all the wind off it, all the sun off it, if you can. I mean, I've got them out here now that's just been sealed up, taped up and sealed with a compound, and they're on. Whether they all grow or not is another thing. If they dry out before they work, then it won't work. So if you can do all these other things, that's good. You can even use, if you wanted to tie it up, you could tie it with a string or raffia. A lot of people like raffia. But if you use these things like the rubber band, raffia or string, or any other sort of fastening, like the carrier bags, and at some point you've got to go and cut it open after about 3 or 4 weeks, 5 weeks, just to see how it's doing. If it hasn't healed properly, that's not to say it's not going to, just tape it up. Just tape it up again. It should be okay. If it looks like it's not doing anything, I'll tape it up anyway and leave it. But after about, I don't know, 4 or 5, or over a couple of months, you should see whether it's starting to heal. You'll get these like white knobbly edges come round your joint, which is where it's healing itself. It's causing calluses and healing. If it gets to that stage, then you've cracked it. So that's good. Okay, where are we now? Let's have a look. Right, I have cut a few pieces here and tried to get them ready as best I can to give you a bit of an idea what we're actually doing. I've got a tool which I'll show you. I bought the tool. It'll cut the shape you want. But just to give you an idea, if I put it in here now, let's see, in here, and line it up and cut. Oh, there you go. That gives you that. Okay. And then I'd do the same again on the other end, but as I'm using the same one to show you, obviously it's cut both ends at the same time. But I would turn another one round that I wanted to put into it. I wouldn't be putting the same one back in, and then it should fit perfectly, like so. And then just to show you how to do this, I'll get my tape, take a small piece off, don't need too much, and then see if we can't fasten it up. It's quite loud, Marion, it's quite loud. Right, there you go. I don't know if you can see that, but the joint is right under my finger. Hope you guys can see this okay. Oh, that's straight. It's left me a wispy bit. I don't normally get that, but I'll just chip that off. There you go. So there's the joint there, and then that's fairly firm. You've got a very, very slight movement. So what I'd do now is get another bit of tape. I would start a little lower down, well, assuming which is the top. Well, it's the other way around actually. But I would go a bit lower, go round it again, all the way up to the very top, and then take one over the top, and that would seal it. And there's my join. So that's one. That's using the machine. It's got 2 or 3 different types of cut. One of them I particularly like is that it cuts the same shape as you've just seen, but puts like a bobble on the bottom. So when you put the other one in it and you cramp them together, it can't actually pull apart because it's catching on the bobble, which is an extra security, I guess. But anyway, let's have a go at what we got here. So we got this one to give you an idea. I'll do whip and tong of these two together, and these are about the same size. So what we do now then is to I can take this bit off here. It's where a bud was. In fact, I think it still is. Oh, I'm there. Well, I'll keep that and show you. No, I can use some of the others. Right, here we go. So what I do, I come back behind it a little way, cut in a little bit, and then slice it across, and that's probably go a little bit longer. Get that, and all I do from the back is put that in the back and take that off, and then I'll put a very slight cut off the back. So that's what I've got. I'll do the same with this one. Let's have a look. What do we need? Somewhere about here. It's quite a nice one. And again, just take a small piece off the back. That's about the same size, yeah. Right, and on this one, this is called a whip and tong. So you've got the tong cut, and what I do with this one, I put the knife in the middle, and then I come halfway up of the next bit. So it goes in about there, and I turn it down, get it going, wobble the knife slightly, so you do like a wobbly cut. It's very hard with a standing knife, but you wobble it in your hand, and it starts to go down. And I go down a little way. It's gone down probably the length to the bottom of it. I'll do the same with this one. Halfway across and halfway again. Get it in, tilt it down, and then wobble it until it comes down. I don't know if you can see that, can you? Right, into about there, about halfway. And all we do then, we'll just use that to lift that slightly. And the same with this one. And we slip them together so they interlock. And there it is. There's a nice, oops, missed it come out this side, hang on. Yeah. A bit too far, take a bit more off there. I'm just taking any overlap off. So, whoops, let's push back in again. Okay. So I don't know if you can see that, but there's your join. You see it staying there on its own. Again, you will tape it up, go all the way to the top. I'll probably cut some of this off. I'll probably leave at most about 3 or 4 buds. If I leave 2 buds, they're going to grow into branches. If I leave about 4 buds, there's a chance, there's just a chance, that 1 or 2 of them may turn into flower buds. So if you want fruit that first year, probably better not to. But anyway, as you can see, looking at that, you can't even really tell without seeing a little wifty bit here that it's not one piece. As long as you get them level, so the bark's level and cambium layers level, you tighten that really up tight and then tape it, and that's your whip and tong. Use that in several places. Okay, right, I'm going to have some of this, one of these buds. Yeah, there's some nice buds on there, so I can show you. So, right, we're going to do a bud graft. Get this out of the way. So what I do with a bud graft, I'm hoping you can see me. You come a little bit below it, about 1/4 inch, 3/8, and you put a bit of a cut downwards. Just wobble it in a bit, and then you come about the same above it, go in a bit, and then you literally wobble it down and try and keep it the same size all the way down to the bottom, which it just did do, and came off, and there it is. And there's my bud. I don't know if you can see the back of that, can you? Hang on. There you go. Okay, I'm going to get that there for a minute. I'll use this bit to put it on. Right, I'm going to use something a bit bigger to put it on. Now, as long as I do the same thing, put the cut down below and go above it about the size that it says there, and wobble it in, and then slowly wobble it down, not going any bigger than the one I've already done. So hopefully that will be it. And I've put a downwards cut in it there. I put a downwards cut when I cut this one off. So this one now should sit in there, which it nearly does. Yeah, I took a fraction too much off the bottom of it. Actually, I might be able to take a bit of that off there. Let's have a look. Slide it down. Yeah, that's lovely. That's better. So there's the bud. I don't know if you see. Hang on, I'll do it this way. There's the bud in there, in the gap that I've just made. So that's how that one goes. And again, all you do with this is you make sure it's nicely in place. Can be in layers touching the other. You take a little bit of this off again. Just hold that, please, Mary. Pull it. Pull it. No, I don't want that. I want some off. No, here. It's a bit difficult when you you can't explain to somebody. But anyway, that's all we've got. So anyway, I'll wrap that around the bottom there, and then try and, there we go. We're out again now, and get that all the way around it. Right, there we go. We're in. So there it is. It's on there. It's wrapped the bud. What I'm going to do now is go above it and get on the top of it, and do the same again, and then come back down, and then back underneath it, and so on, and then just take that off there. And what I'll do now is just take a little bit more of this, just a fraction more. Only want a small bit, and stretch this over the oh, I've got all the wood bits over the actual bud. So what I'm going to do is to put it on the side here, stretch it round, onto itself, and that's it. So now the bud is covered. What I would obviously do with that is I would cover that with the compound, but that bud is sealed, secured, and it will, when it starts to grow through that that para tape. So that's basically a bud graft. There is another substantial one. What time is it, please, Mary? That I'd like to show you. 5 minutes. Yeah. If I take a nice small cut in here, right, I'll just take that off there. This is if you've got a fairly thick bit of wood, as I have here, and I wanted to put this onto it, an ideal way of doing this is to make a T cut, make a T cut in the wood, roll it round it, go through, and come down into a T. Come down about, I don't know, about an inch and a quarter, and then get your knife into the cut, and you should be able to, if I have gone through it enough, yeah, lift the bark. I use the back of the knife, that's a better way. Yeah, there you go. Oops, lift the back of the knife off the bark, and what I do then is go to my graft, and I'll make a nice long cut, a nice long cut. Oops, hang on. So that's it, and then just take the piece off the back. And what I can do here is just thinly take the bark off the sides. Now this cut then will go, I don't know if you see my T-cut, but there's my join there. I would take that in the side of it and push it down around the bark, go round the bark, and then basically push that down there and tie all that back in. So you push that thin bit right round the bark so it's nearly on the other side, and then you tie it all back in and seal it. So then you've basically got a branch all ready, and you tape it up, and then I would use some sealer to make sure, or even smear plastitrine all around the joints, but I'd tape it up first to make sure it holds this bark in place. So that's that one, which is a very good one to add an extra branch to your trees. I'm going to pull that out because I want to show you another one here. Right, the top here I've cut off, and what I did with this, I cut it off with a saw. I used the knife to pare it round the edge. That cleans it all up, no nasty little soft surfaces that you can't get into. And then there's two things we can do here. If this was a bigger branch, I would put a cut down the side of it, lift the bark from the inside edge, and put some cuttings straight down on it, 2 or 3, 4 you want or more. Tape them in nicely and seal it. The other thing to do is to actually get your knife on the middle and rock it into it very slowly rock it in. I don't want to go through and cut my fingers off. It's going, here it goes, there you go. Right, so that's gone in there about, what, inch and a quarter. Okay, right, now I'd pick a branch. I'll take this one that looks like it's got a bit on it, so I'll take this one. It's quite a bit smaller, and I would put a cut there and a cut the other side, and just clean them up. Okay, so that what I've got then is like that, both sides. Okay, now where I've put the cut through, I'll just do the one, but I could put 2 in here. I'll get the bark lined up with the bark. I'm going to have to open that up a bit. There we go. Right, I'll get it in first and then do it. Right, so I lined it up with the bark and slip that down there. I'm going to try and pull this out if I can. Okay, so right, I'll continue pushing that down, right down to the bevel. I can get a bit more, I don't know. Yep. Right, that is in solid now, as you might be able to see on that edge. That is right down there solid. The cut is open that side. I could slip another one in that side, probably a different type even, or I can do it this way. I can put plasticine into that as such, if I can get this right. There, like that. And what I'd do is I'd tape the joint up nice and tight, and that one, there's no reason why that wouldn't grow. But what I would do in the hot windy weather is I'd get some so you could use a paper bag, as long as you put an hole in it so the air can get in, and if it rains it's not going to mess it up. Ideally, this is where you can make like a tunnel of aluminium, seal the top up, make a little hole in it so the air can get in, and then squeeze it on the bottom. squeeze it to the bottom here, which would do the job nicely. So that's another one. That's a cleft graft. A modified cleft graft is if I'd have made the cut instead of across the middle, more to one side, I could have made it exactly the size of this graft, so it would have fitted on both sides nicely, which would have been better, and so that both sides of it would be catching the cambium layer instead of just one side on this one. And that don't make any difference, that will still work. But if you did it the other way, then you know both sides was. I'm just thinking if we missed anything. There's another graft that I haven't sort of spoke of yet. Let me just look at this. Okay, right. There's an approach graft. You could, if you've got, they work better with trees that are greener. I don't know, maybe something like kumquat, or maybe a lemon or something like that. But you could get the two bits to go together. I'll show you. Two to go together, and take a cut off and a cut off there, put them together and tape them up. That way you could have them on their own trees. You see, you could have them on their own trees. And when eventually, after several weeks, you have a look at this, if it's calloused, you can cut the one off that you don't want. Well, you want it, but you want it on the other tree. So then you've got your graft. But this one I don't think is as solid as most of the others. It'll work well, but it's not so solid because it's actually swinging in midair. And once it's taken, it would be okay, but I think it would be several years before it got very strong, and I'd be tending to keep that fastened up for quite a long time. So right, the other thing is there is other grafts. Well, there's one more that I'll tell you about, which we found is, you might like it actually. It's a very easy one. Very easy one. You get an electric drill, and you go out with your scion, and you get your electric drill to be, I don't know, what, a good 1/16 of an inch thinner than that. And then you drill an hole in your tree 1/2 inch deep, and then you put a cut round this. I'll do that and show you. Well, actually there's another one I've just thought of, I'll show you as well. You put that all the way around there. I don't know if I've got that properly. Let's have a look. Cut that to the end, and I should be able to take that off. Whoops, there it's coming. Yeah, it's coming off nicely. There's one more bit to come off. Okay. Right, so there we've got that. I would cut the top off nicely as well. I didn't do with this, but I just clipped the top off. And then you just force it into that hole. If the hole's too tight, just wobble it about a little bit until it forces in. And then seal it up with plasticine around the edge and just leave it. I would put a bit on the end of it as well, obviously. And you could actually paratape it up to keep it moist. But that's an easy one, very easy. Drill the hole, shove it in, tape it up, seal the gap with this, or even that sealing compound, and that would be that. Right, there's one more I'd like to show you. It's when we cut the bud by taking a piece of wood. But I'm going to show you another way. If I put a cut above this one, a good way round, make sure I go through, and below it, all the way round and below, and then cut it down. Very carefully cut it down. Oops. I'm a bit worried about the standing knife, it's so bloody sharp. Let's try the other way around, see if I can do it that way. I'll try this one. Nearly there. Okay, let's see if I can get this to come out. And what I'm trying to do this time is I'm trying to lift the bark, and I should be able to push that bark. I can't, it's still a bit new, this wood, but it's coming off. So get it where you can see it, and from the other side. Most of this wood I'm using has actually gone too far. There we go, it's come. So it just lifts clean off. So this is not right, because I tell you, it's been cut off and it's left a hole. But that would be a bud, and all you do is you cut a lump out the other one. You cut a lump out your rootstock. Make sure you get the top and bottom right. Even do this and score around it, and just drop it in and tape it up. Cut a piece out, drop it in and tape it up. The reason that's come out of there is because that was a leaf, not a bud. If it was a bud, it would have come up and the bud would have still been in the hole. The idea of doing this is, if you grow a tree from seed, or you've got a starting a tree, the chances are, well, if you buy one nowadays, it's probably been grafted. But if you did it yourself, you could grow the seeds from any apple. Discovery is a good one because it's pretty solid and resistant. And then get your cuttings and cut them and put them into that one, and change the make of the apple. The thing with getting these is, if this tree is say 10 years old and it fruits, and you get apples or pears or cherries or whatever you get, then it will, even if it's a bud, it will still think that it's a full-grown tree, and all its memory will be retained. So even though the bottom will still take 7, 8, 10 years to fruit, your bit on the top will fruit straight away. If you get flowers on that first year, you'll probably get fruit, but it's probably better not to have them that first year. Take them off and let it get nice firmly established for the next year. So the second or third year it would be brilliant, but then you can add more to it. So anyway, I hope that's explained quite a lot to you. One more thing to let you know, if you've got an almond tree, you can actually graft peaches, apricots, plums, nectarines, or any other type of fruit with this type of seed to it. A lemon tree or any citrus or any of them others, you should be able to graft them others to it. It's a little strange with the apricot one, because whereas you should be able to graft everything to the apricot, it's not always necessary to be able to do it the other way around. So you have to try. You might be able to graft them all to say a nectarine, but if you can't, that's because of that one thing. They're not all compatible one way round. But say if you've got a lemon tree, any of the citrus varieties like oranges, mandarins, lemons, limes, grapefruit, pimpernels, kumquats, or I've just bought myself a finger lime, which I'm waiting to turn up, and that's like a bit like a thumb really, and you break it open and they come out like little pearls, like caviar, and they're not quite so strong as a lime, but very refreshing. You can sprinkle them on your salad, add them to different dishes. Absolutely delicious they are, and they come in several different colours. My one will be a red one, so that will look quite nice on the plate. But anyway, I hope that's explained a bit to you. I hope you can hear me okay, and I hope I didn't bore everybody to tears, and I hope maybe some of you learned something. And the way to practice this is literally to just go out, take some cuttings and play with it. The only thing you've got to do is remember is before these have all been grown, you need to do this before April, while it's still dormant. If you take cuttings, they only want to be about that size, or that, which is not a lot. You can even be a bit smaller. You can even be that size. They're all okay. They're about the size you want. This is okay, that's a good size, and that's still okay. But you want the bud on it, just like you're seeing. I don't know if you see it there. There's a little bud on there that's not opened. This one's opened, it's got a leaf coming, so's that. That one hasn't opened. It may not, but you need them all to be in that closed state before they open. And all you do is you just cut them off, and you don't need to do this, but I like just to put them in a glass of water, take them in the house. I get a zip bag, shake the water off them. You don't want no water on, shake it off, drop them in the zip bag, seal it up, put them in the fridge, and it should stay like that for quite a few months, enough to give you the time for the sap to start to rise, and you'd be able to get out, take them outside and start grafting them. So okay, well, I think that concludes my talk. I just hope I didn't bore everybody, and hope you found it interesting. Anyway, thank you.